All right, everybody, welcome back to our next Slayer album review in the Slayer journey we've been taking. We got quite a few albums to go still, but we've knocked out the 80s stuff where we left off last time with South of Heaven, but now we're entering the 90s with this piece right here, Seasons in the Abyss. And as I kind of said last time, you know, South of Heaven, when we were talking about it, it really is the perfect kind of transition album in between, this one and the one that came before it, Rain and Blood, because, it still kind of had it had like quite a few of them pretty damn fast songs on it, but also had a good mix of like the more melodic, slower, sludgier ones. On it had like its fair share of that. And this one, I would say, definitely has more, leans more towards the side of having those melodies, really hooky melodies, and really like a little bit, slower riffs. Don't get me wrong, there are a good two or three that you could throw on Rain and Blood, and it would sound just fine on there. The speed, and everything, the blast beats. But I would say for the most part, this one does have like it's got more of, again, kind of like that groove to it, and even at some parts like some doom qualities to it. But we'll get into that as we go here. We got another freaking sick album cover, crazy looking stuff here, as always per Slayer. This will also be the last album that drummer Dave Lombardo appears on for the band, until, of course, he does end up returning later on down the line. But this will be the last one he's going to be on for a little while. So, next time we will have that lineup change finally, because we've been, I've been saying each time, yep, we still got the same lineup here. And we do on this one, with, Dave on drums, Tom Araya, bass and vocals, and then, you got your two guitar players, Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman. So, with that being said, we're going to kick it off right now with just a big blast to the face with War Ensemble. And this one kind of sets the tone for the album as far as, like, also leaning less towards, like, the satanic stuff. And again, there is some of that on here, but it's more about, like, some straight up, like, more human things that can happen here. The horrors of this world, set more, grounded in reality here, dealing with, like this freaking war, and talking about, I'm trying to remember the exact lyric of it, but, it's like, how many people can I kill, and just super fast and heavy stuff. Love it right off the bat. So this is one of the quicker ones off here. War Ensemble is, and you get like that just yell, like, I mean, it's not even a scream like his, what Tom Araya does, but it's like it's a deep, gutted kind of yell, instead of like the more like, high pitched kind of screaming, squealing that he's done on a lot of, the previous albums. So really, really awesome opener. I mean, War Ensemble is just, Slayer always just knock this shit out of the park every time with their openers. They know how to be like, throw it in your face and say, here we are. And they do it yet again with War Ensemble. Then we get Blood Red, which is a really, really cool song. I love the riff on here. Super melodic and hooky riff that's just like, man. And I like the chorus too, is kind of a bit faster. Even more, I'd say even more faster than kind of like the verses, even like the way the vocal melody kind of flows together and then just enters right back into that really badass riff. And then, this one is kind of a little bit of a lengthier song. We get a little breakdown in there that's just like pure headbanging material. Kind of slows down a little bit, gets more of a groove to it. So we see that kind of enter itself in and kind of tack itself on kind of, at the end of this song. Because again, I mean, Blood Red is kind of a little bit of a speedier one too, but also with a more melodic guitar melody going on throughout it. Another absolutely freaking incredible track. Then we followed up with Spirit in Black, which this one is more of a kind of a slower, kind of groovier song to it. But I mean, as I've kind of said, when talking about the songs that were like that on South of Heaven, it doesn't take away from the heaviness at all from this, because I mean, this thing is heavy as hell. even in whether it be within the lyrical, the lyrics themselves, the lyrical themes and everything, or just even the music's still heavy. Anybody who's a heavy metal fan knows you don't got to be going like 100 miles per hour to be considered heavy. That is a way to do it, but this is heavy in again a fast way, and some parts, but on the ones with the kind of more groove, doom and gloom with them, and the more hooky melodies, the heaviness is still freaking there. And Spirit in Black is one of those. And I love the chorus of this one. Coils of the serpent unwind. Spirit in Black, just incredible freaking song. Yet again to follow it up. I mean, it's just banger after banger so far. Then we get to Expendable Youth, another very, very dark track, with such a awesome melody though, that it's got going on through it. I love the riff. I mean, you start off with Tom Araya, that bass thumping, and as well as Dave Lombardo hitting the bass drum, at the same time. It's just got this kind of, you just start bopping your head to it immediately, and then it's got just this really, really awesome riff to it. And I love the whole, the chorus too, the way it kind of flows together. It's such an amazing melody to it. And, this one even too, it's got some of my favorite moments of Dave Lombardo's drumming in his career. It shows kind of like some of his more offbeat kind of time signatures he's got in between, like during that chorus when he says like Expendable Youth. He'll have just these freaking crazy technical fills going on in between, until he, hops back in with the vocal part of the chorus. So Expendable Youth, one of my favorites off here, big time. Then we close out side one with Dead Skin Mask, another absolutely dark one. This one is really kind of got that, that dark and evil sound to it with that opening riff, really, really wicked and evil sounding again. Kind of like, it reminds you of something, if you've been kind of following along here, like Spill the Blood kind of had like just kind of a slower start to it. And then it kicked itself in, because you get that kind of wicked and mystical opening to this, and then you hear like all of a sudden the banging and the drum starts happening. You hear the spoken word part, how I've waited for you to come, please stay a while, I'll make you stay forever, or something, because this song is about the serial killer Ed Gein, who would to put it bluntly, would skin his victims, make nipple belts and lampshades out of people. Very creepy shit. And hence Dead Skin Mask, because and he also would, that's also the serial killer who inspired Leatherface. So they're just a very, very spooky song. One of my favorite Slayer songs of all time. It captures that vibe perfectly. And I just love like the graze the skin with my fingertips, that opening lyric, but it's just like said with so much viciousness in it. And then the riff is just super heavy, really chuggy in this one. And, even the melody in this during the chorus, as dark as it is, it kind of follows along with that opening riff. And then, later on, you kind of get these like child voices that are like, and in the end of it, by the end of it, they're like screaming, talking about Mr. Gein, and just really creepy shit. But I mean, I'm a big, it's no secret here if you follow the channel, I'm a big horror fan. And I'm a big Slayer fan. I'm reviewing all their stuff. So mix those two things together to another level, talking about a real serial killer. And then you have Slayer, the band, singing about it. It's just bound to be a freaking masterpiece of a track. It's a Dead Skin Mask. Close out side one. It damn well might be my favorite off this album. Then we open up side two with one of them really fast ones here, Hollowed Point, that I could definitely see being on a Rain and Blood or Hell Awaits, as far as its kind of fast and heavy stuff that's going on with it. You got it just jumps right into it. You immediately hear just the speed going on from Dave, and another sick riff with a really cool chorus that's kind of a bit speedier as well. Then we go on to another one of my favorites off here, Skeletons of Society. Another freaking evil, dark, gloomy riff from these guys, from Carrie and Jeff Hanneman. I mean, we're talking, and they even have kind of not the spoken word part during the chorus, but it's like this like chant, like shades of death are all I see, fragments of what used to be, and then and then it ends up kind of evolving later on as you kind of go through this groovy verse and everything. Then that kind of chant thing will come back, and then Tom will sing very aggressively after it, kind of repeating it, and then oh man, it just makes for a perfect Slayer song. Love, love, love Skeletons of Society, one of my favorites. Also has just a top tier freaking solo from the gang on here, and I also got to mention too about Dead Skin Mask. One of my favorite Slayer solos. You got Jeff Hanneman and Kerry King just trading off during the solo of Dead Skin Mask. So forgot to mention that, but that's definitely a highlight of that song. But yeah, Skeletons of Society, one of my favorite Slayer songs of all time. Super, super dark, evil, and heavy. Then we go on to Temptation. Man, what a fast one. I mean, we're talking big time fast stuff with this. It kind of follows the same kind of route that, Blood Red, the Offside One does with like, it gets a little bit almost of like an extension where you get like this just massive headbanging moment near the end during a breakdown, but then it speeds right back up again and just keeps going. Hear a lot of them squeals and stuff that Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman are known for. So we're seeing a lot more of that. Big throwback to again a lot of the prior albums that we've looked at. Then we go to Born of Fire. Man, this one, we get the blast beats in full effect from Dave Lombardo going on here and the drums. Man, I mean, and this one is talking about the more satanic hellfire stuff like that. You get the Born of Fire. This is just another massive highlight off here. I've even come to like that track even more so over the years. Through multiple listens of this over the years, that one's like rose up to be one of my favorites off here. Especially having kind of the way the album moves along, and then on her second last track, here's just Dave's gonna go full on freaking blast beat on you. So just really, really kick-ass stuff with Born of Fire. Then we close it out with the title track, Seasons in the Abyss. This one, I believe, was probably one of the bigger tracks off here as far as, like, airplay got. I think it got a music video and everything. And, for damn good reason. It's got a very, very hooky chorus, very melodic chorus, and, almost doom metal intro there at the beginning with just, like, the major just strum the chords and just let them ring. And then another one, it just almost really Sabbathy, like sounds like something off like the first Sabbath album. So I love that. So it kind of follows off, again the callback to South of Heaven, how that album ended with the slower, doomier intro at the beginning with like Spill the Blood off South of Heaven. The finale of this album, Seasons in the Abyss, does the same thing, and we get one of the hookiest and most melodic choruses you guys have ever heard. But it's just freaking, you listen to what they're saying, and it's just damn dark, Close your eyes, let yourself go, let your mind go, or something of that nature, as you go insane. And then like later on, he throws in like as you die, and screams. So I mean, it's still very, very heavy stuff, and so that closed out the album here. And if you couldn't tell, freaking love this thing. A massive, success for the band as far as, I mean, they were still going on this run of success here. This kind of closes out that major, major era of success from their debut up to here. As far, that, well, of course, the success doesn't, change my opinion of the albums or whatever, as we'll see as we keep going along through some of their less successful times that will be coming up like in the later 90s and everything. But yeah, this is the kind of the cap to that just major successful on top of the world run Slayer was going through from their debut all the way to 1990. I think it's 1990. Yeah, 1990. Right here. So and yeah, what was pretty funny, my girlfriend and I were talking about this. She's never really been into Slayer, right? So she's kind of, but she's interested, and she was so she's listening to Rain and Blood, and some of and I went South of Heaven and stuff, and she kind of digs them a little bit. Took her some time to kind of get, get into it. She's starting to kind of dig them a little bit, but she gets to this one, and even though it's, slower, she even described it. She's like, it's just got like a doom and gloom to it that's just really like evil sounding. And I'm like, oh, so like, I was like, so that's interesting to me, how like, and that just shows you the heaviness is still there despite maybe a slight tone down in speed at a lot of the moments on this album. Because, she's digging the faster, super heavy Rain and Blood, but, this one is like almost like it's talking about, a lot of real world stuff here. And really, in just like the heaviness of a lot of those doomy riffs. So I thought that was pretty interesting to hear. I figured this one would be a little bit more accessible to a lot of people. As in, Hell Awaits or Rain and Blood, you're just like blasting all the way through, But maybe not. I guess the stuff like Expendable Youth and War on. I mean, it's talk about just some dark stuff in Dead Skin Mask. If I had to maybe pick a least favorite off here, which is really freaking hard, as it's been on a lot of these, because even on every album up to this point, even my least favorites have been, incredible songs in their own right. I'd maybe say, maybe Hollowed Point, maybe, but I really love that song though. Maybe Temptation, but again, love that one too. But yeah, just absolutely love this album. This was my first Slayer album I owned. This was kind of the album for me that really made me a Slayer fan. Because, I'd heard Rain and Blood, and I was like, as I talked about in that review, I was like, holy shit, like, what is this? Just insanity years ago. And I was just like, had to kind of put it down for a minute. Then after I had heard, I think I heard the song Dead Skin Mask off here. And so, like, it took me understanding, and then, I ended up purchasing this album and listening to it all the way through, and just loving the hell out of it. Then I went back to Rain and Blood and was like, okay, I get what's going on here with the band. And so this one really made me a Slayer fan, as in Rain and Blood just kind of shocked me, like, and I was listening to heavy metal at the time too, of course, but just, I hadn't, at the time, I hadn't jumped into Slayer yet. So jumping right into Rain and Blood, I was like, oh my God, with the speed and everything, was just kind of hard to wrap my mind around. But that's why I kind of figured this would be a more accessible album and to get people into them. But maybe I'm wrong. A lot of people do hop right into the band with Rain and Blood, and it just, bam, it takes off from there. And I didn't hate Rain and Blood the first time I heard it. It just was like, what the hell? It just kind of was like, what have I, stumbled upon here? But this one definitely kind of, got me to where, okay, I'll listen to this, I'll go back and listen to Rain and Blood again, and then we're just going to listen to them all, and thus, look at me now, massive Slayer fan. But yeah, guys, I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts on this album, and a lot of the darker, more evil tones and the heaviness to it, the kind of more groove stuff that we kind of talked about a little bit in South of Heaven. It's much more, prominent on here, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that, what you think about that, and, Slayer going into the 90s. Were you guys starting to lose interest in them at this time? Or were you like, okay, these guys are still going? Because I've heard kind of a mix of both. And, also, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about, Dave Lombardo leaving the band after this album, which, again, we'll talk about Paul Bostaff, who replaced him on the next album we look at, Divine Intervention. So that's what we'll be taking a look at next time, kind of the first album after this whole massive run of Slayer. So stay tuned for that. Divine Intervention next time is what we'll be looking at, and continuing on our journey through the 90s Slayer. Like, subscribe, comment, guys. Thanks.